The path to true wealth is not about bragging with the latest luxury items, but about living humility and contentment. We live in a world that constantly glorifies consumption, and if you can manage to resist it, you can build much more wealth than you can imagine today. In this video, I will show you 5 reasons why it is important to look poor. And with that, welcome to Northern Finance. My name is Alex Black, and we will get right into the first reason, which is that it is very expensive to live this way. Just one of my neighbors has a BMW M4 convertible, for example, and I have only my old Suzuki SUV and it's still in good shape. I still like to travel and the car is still in good shape and it requires little maintenance. I'm satisfied. I could just keep driving it. But if I feel like I have to compare myself to my neighbor now and to have at least as nice a car or even better, then I get the same model with 45,000 kilometers for approximately 48,000 input that you can also finance it. If we click on it, we see that it's a car loan from Santander Bank, which requires a down payment of nearly 10,000 euros and even a final payment of 16,000 euros. For that, you end up paying almost 6% interest every year. And that over 5 years, that adds up to more than 7,200 euros in interest over that period. If you had invested the same 524 euro now in your ETF invested, and that with 524 euros monthly at about 7%, return per year, which is very realistic. In the same period, you would have even built up 45,000 euros in assets that you're missing now because you wanted the car. Additionally, a more expensive car also comes with higher costs. The inspection costs more, you should fill up with premium fuel over regular gasoline, the tires need to be replaced more often, and they are more expensive. The insurance costs more than for a smaller car, as it is calculated based on the engine size and emissions. So think again before you rush into the next car when you read headlines like these from the weekend. Next, we come to the second point, which is that you don't have to prove anything to anyone. If you really have a lot of wealth or are certain you are on your way there, then you don't need to prove it to others with status symbols because you already know it. A nice example of this is this clip from 1999. In which Amazon founder Jeff Bezos drives a Honda while he was already a billionaire.
According to my calculations, you yourself are worth somewhere in the vicinity of $9 or $10 billion today. I only say that because I've got a follow-up question.
Okay.
What's with the Honda?
This is a perfectly good car.
And he continued to drive this car until 2013 because it is simply a good car, as he says. Just because some people think you should afford something better because you are now in a very advantageous situation. I mean, you don't have to do anything, but if you have earned it, then you are certainly allowed to. You know how much your ETF, your house, your shares, your PP loans, your Bitcoin and so on worth, and you don't have to show it off just because others do. Warren Buffett is one of the best role models for that. He has lived in the same house since 1958, which he bought back then in Omaha. That looks like a nice house and is probably enough. Of course, you can live much larger, but you don't have to because it honestly looks very good as well. This house and the rooms are probably more than enough to have a nice life in, even with a family. Moving on to point 3, you filter the wrong people out of your life. If you don't participate in excessive consumption, like going out on weekends, to the club, to the bar, or the third short trip this year, this time to Spain, some of your so-called friends will leave your life if you don't join in. That's okay and saves you a lot of nerves and money. You can also indulge 1,000. But again, it's about finding the right balance. And if a part of your environment cannot find this balance or perhaps doesn't want to, then they probably don't have much genuine interest in a real connection with you and in what truly makes you who you are as a person, but only in the material connection with you. That one can have a good time with you because a lot of money is spent. And that's really not what it's about. This brings us to point 3. Point 5, yes, a bonus point. Because nowadays, status symbols unfortunately often become targets of attacks in Europe. In Frankfurt or Berlin or even in other large cities, I would definitely not walk around with an expensive watch. In Singapore or other countries, that might be possible, but with the current crime rate, I wouldn't take that risk. The same goes for posing with nice cars or other beautiful things on social media. You can certainly do that, but burglars are always on the lookout for new victims, and those who particularly like to show off status symbols unfortunately more likely to be robbed. There are many prominent examples of this, such as Prince Marcus, who was on vacation in 2018 while his villa in Frankfurt was being broken into. Numerous Rolex watches, fur coats, and much more were stolen. If you have something very valuable, especially status symbols, they are unfortunately very often stolen nowadays. Moving on to point 4. Be happy with what you have. It sounds a bit silly, but the most important things are those that cannot be bought. Good health, good friends, a job, good food. You can buy those, and I am also very happy to spend money on that. But cars are not that important. The Ferrari probably won't make you much happier than you were before. And even though it's nice to have it, most cases it doesn't change much about your satisfaction. The lottery winner, Chico, recently sold his Ferrari, which he had only acquired shortly after his lottery win, in order to pay off a mortgage now, so the car doesn't seem to have been that important after all. In the moment, it's nice to buy it, no question. But, as can be seen here under the article's headline, the ongoing costs were simply too high. As mentioned in point 1 of this video, if Chico had subscribed to Northern Finance, he could have invested his lottery winnings much better. Don't make the same mistake and leave me a like and subscribe now to not miss any more videos. The concept has also been taken up in science and is referred to here as the hedonic treadmill, where you have basic satisfaction in the middle. Then there is the orange line representing the feeling of happiness in that moment. We shoot up here when we have a new car, but then we also see a sharp decline in satisfaction when the neighbor buys a nicer car, for example. After that, we move into a new house and are very happy again, only to realize later that in the new area our neighbor is even richer than we are and can afford other things, for which we now have no budget left. One should really be careful not to tie one's happiness to status symbols, because in doubt there is always someone who can afford even more or is even richer. True happiness comes from within, from good friends, family, health, and similar things. Even though beautiful things are still very beautiful, no question about it, and I also like to reward myself. But more on that after the next point in the conclusion. First, let's move on to point 5. If you are satisfied with less, as described in point 4, then you can also retire or be financially free. Less. Let's say you need approximately 50,000 euros to live on per year. According to the 4% rule, which states that you can withdraw 4% annually from a diversified stock portfolio without diminishing your purchasing power, you can already be financially free with an asset of approximately 1.25 million euros and live only off your dividends and such. If you need 100,000 euros support family, you need double, totaling 2.5 million euros. And for 150,000 euros a year, if you also want to travel a lot with your family, then you need 3.75 million euros in assets to be able to safely and securely withdraw this amount without risk. If you and your family can get by with less and above all are happy with it, and you don't need status symbols, then in my opinion, you have hit the jackpot. And as shown in this current study by the daughter of Visa, almost half of Germans are just getting by and have to decide which of their most important expenses can actually be covered. Even a bit more, namely 53%, have to tap into their savings to cover their living expenses. So if you can retire with less and never have to worry again about whether it will be enough at the end of the month, then you have achieved a lot and can be really proud of yourself. And then you don't need a luxury item to feel this joy. Let's be clear, luxury goods are something nice, no question about it. There is a reason why we find this year so beautiful. And personally, I also like to treat myself to luxury goods when I achieve really big, but also very personal goals, to remind myself of the great milestones I have already reached. And I wear a nice watch or a nice jacket. However, you should never base your satisfaction with yourself and your wealth on luxury goods and the opinions of others about them, and you should rather look a bit poorer, but actually be happier. Achieving your financial freedom is 10 times more important, and it can really help to take a step back and focus on the true things that can make you happy. I would definitely be happy at first, but this weekend, for example, I spent a few hours here at the beach in the nature reserve with a very good friend of mine. The joy I had here when I kept jumping into the waves was really great, and it didn't cost anything at all. Good times with good friends, that is what personally gives me a lot of satisfaction. Luxury items are just the cherry on top, so to speak, but certainly not the goal. What is your opinion on the topic? Share it in the comments below. I look forward to the exchange, and with that, I wish you a good return and see you next time.